All right, welcome. Today we're diving into the tech that keeps the world's energy flowing, especially after that first big rush from a new well is long gone. It's called artificial lift, and it really is the hidden engine of the entire oil field. But, you know, to really get why we even need this stuff, you have to start with a really simple question. What actually happens when an oil well just runs out of steam, when it loses its natural push? Let's dig in. Okay, so when the pressure is off, you gotta understand, every single oil well has a life cycle. It has a beginning, a middle, and eventually an end. And pretty much every single one, sooner or later, faces the exact same problem. It goes flat.
I love this analogy. Think of a brand new oil well, just like a can of soda you just shook up. The second you pop that top, right? The pressure inside is so intense that everything comes flying out, all on its own. It is just packed with natural energy. And this slide right here, it shows you that journey perfectly. It's pretty much inevitable for every well. It kicks off super strong. That natural pressure is doing all the heavy lifting. But as time goes on and you pull more and more oil out, that pressure just fades. And eventually that powerful flow becomes a weak trickle. And sometimes it just stops altogether. Now, here's the really important part. When a well goes flat, it absolutely does not mean it's empty. Not even close. It just means it needs a little help getting the rest of the good stuff out. And that, right there, is where the engineers come in to, well, give nature a lift. So, what is this solution? It's called an artificial lift system, and it's exactly what it sounds like. At its core, it's just a mechanical way to boost the flow of liquids from a well when that natural pressure just isn't cutting it anymore. And look, this isn't just about grabbing more oil right now. It's much smarter than that. It's really about four key things. First, yeah, it enhances production rates, but it also extends the life of the well, sometimes for decades. It also reduces the pressure way down at the bottom, which actually helps more oil flow into the wellbore. And the bottom line, it keeps the whole operation economically viable. All right, so let's pop open the engineer's toolbox, shall we? Because this isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of problem. Oh no, there are a bunch of different methods, and each one is a specific tool for a very specific job. Okay, method one, rod lift. And I guarantee you've seen this one. This is the famous nodding donkey. It is the most recognizable symbol of an oil field anywhere in the world. So how does this thing actually work? Well, it's kind of beautifully simple. You've got that pump jack on the surface doing its up and down thing. That motion moves a super long string of steel rods, called sucker rods, up and down deep inside the well. Way down at the bottom, that movement operates a simple pump and a couple of one-way valves. And with every single stroke, it physically lifts a whole column of oil up to the surface. Simple, but effective. All right, next up is method two, the electric submersible pump, or ESP for short. And you might already be using this tech without even knowing it. If you have a water well at home, chances are you have a mini version of one of these things down there. It's a really powerful piece of kit. And when I say powerful, I mean it. Check out this number. A single ESP can move more than 20,000 barrels of fluid a day. That's an incredible amount. It's basically a rocket engine-style pump that sits way down in the well, making it an absolute beast for high production wells. Okay, method three is gas lift. And this one is really clever. It works on a totally different principle. Instead of physically lifting the oil, it makes the oil lighter so it can lift itself. The best way to picture it? Imagine blowing bubbles into your straw in a drink. You see how the liquid kind of rises up the straw? That's basically gas lift. So here's how that works in the field. They take some of the natural gas that's already coming out of the well, and they run it through a compressor on the surface. Then they shoot that now high-pressure gas right back down the well. It enters the main tubing through special valves, creating all those bubbles. This makes the whole column of oil way less dense, so the well's own, weaker pressure is now strong enough to push it all the way to the top. Super smart. Next up, plunger lift. This is another really smart and maybe more importantly, cost-effective method. It's often one of the first things they'll try when a well starts to slow down. Basically, a plunger falls down the well, lets pressure build up underneath it, and then it rides that pocket of gas back to the top, bringing a big slug of liquid with it. Rinse and repeat. And our fifth one is the progressing cavity pump, or PCP.
The easiest way to think about this one is like a giant screw or an auger. It's a big helical rotor that turns, and that turning motion literally screws the fluid up and out of the well. This makes it amazing for handling really thick, heavy, viscous oil or stuff with a lot of sand in it. It's a real problem solver.
So this table is a fantastic little cheat sheet. It lays it all out. You can see how each method has its pros and cons, right? Rod lift is great for many onshore wells, but can't move huge volumes. And ESP is a monster for volume, but it needs more maintenance. Gas lift, plunger lift, PCPs, they all have their sweet spot. It really hammers home that there's a specific tool for pretty much every type of job.
All right, so that's the toolbox. But what happens when you get out in the field? Because let me tell you, the real world is messy. Conditions can get, well, extreme. And in those cases, the standard tools just aren't going to cut it.
Yeah, I mean, take a look at this quote. It really paints a picture. It says, "The Western Canadian Sedimentary Basin has unique oil and gas reservoirs with various challenges." And they're not kidding. We're talking about all kinds of tough problems that need solving.
And this is where the innovation really gets cool. You have a challenge, you invent a solution. For example, you've got these reservoirs that are heated with steam to get the heavy oil moving, and they can reach 350 degrees Celsius. Your normal gear would literally melt. So engineers had to come up with specialized pumps using super high-tech materials, like special elastomers or even all-metal pumps that can handle that kind of insane heat.
And stuff like this doesn't just happen overnight in some secret lab. It comes from the whole industry working together. We're talking about developing really advanced software to model what's happening miles underground, building labs that can actually simulate those crazy downhole conditions for testing, and even forming big projects where different companies share what they're learning to push the technology forward for everybody. It's a huge team effort. So, okay, we've looked at the problem, the toolbox, the crazy challenges. Let's take a step back. Why does any of this really matter? What's the big picture?
Well, here's what I want you to remember. First, artificial lift is absolutely fundamental to modern energy. It's how we get the most out of every resource. Second, there is no magic bullet. You need that whole diverse toolbox for all the different situations out there. Third, you have to keep innovating, constantly, because the challenges are always getting tougher. And finally, and maybe this is the most important point, this tech is what lets us extend the life of the energy resources we've already found.
And that really leaves us with a big question to chew on, doesn't it? As our tech gets even more advanced and the world's energy needs keep changing, what's the next generation of artificial lift going to look like? What new problems will engineers be trying to solve in 10, 20, or 50 years? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.